I'm sending you the request.
What up, man?
Oh, Daniel Laurent. Oh, you snuck off to the car. I see, huh?
Get some privacy.
Ah,
So
you must have a loud, busy household if you got to sneak off to the car
no, well,
or wherever you are.
so ironically, I'm going to Atlanta tomorrow for Invest Fest. Um,
Invest Fest.
and I wanted to because I do believe in self-care. So I reached out to the people I go to, and I wanted to get a manicure and a pedicure, right? And so they fit me in for today at 7. I'm like, shit. All right. I'm like, so how hip hop would it be for me to be sitting in a nail salon? And I was like, that's not gonna work. So, I bumped it up to 5, and then I wanted to make sure I wasn't late. So
That's great. Well, I'd like to welcome everybody for tuning
Word.
in to the Leeds Edutainment podcast. We got a very special guest today, Daniel Laurent, aka DL.
Word.
Boston rapper, community liaison, and a man who likes the finer things like pedicure and skincare. I can say that you are technically a skincare professional because you are in that industry in
Yeah.
some form.
Yes.
You've been in it for a while.
I work at a dermatology office. I've been there for about 18 years, you know what I'm saying? But I think now more than ever, I'm leaning into, entrepreneurship and just trying to do stuff on my own. So I think, there's always talk about stuff. And I think that there's two different types of people, maybe more, but there's the people who like talk about it and think and plan and have all these different pieces. And then there's the people who just do it, you know what I'm saying? And they eat what they kill. So it's just different. Some people are like, oh, go to school, get a good job, save for your 401k and your retirement and all that violent bullshit. I'm kind of past that. So
Yeah, I've always prided myself as a person of action, not talk.
word.
I don't like small talk,
Word.
and I don't even like to talk about business until it's done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot of times, you'll hear a lot of people talking about like the things they're about to do and it's going to happen, and then it doesn't happen, and it just makes you look bad. So I was always like adamant, like don't talk about it till you know it's done.
Exactly. People will take pictures and they'll post it to record labels. And they're like, yo, big shit's happening. And like 6 months later, 6 years later, you're like, yo, what happened? It's like,
yeah, right.
So I was never big on that.
And that went for shows for me too. Like I wouldn't talk about a show until it was confirmed and announced, because I always felt like I'd jinx it. Like if I didn't, and that happened a few times, I'd be like, I talked about it and it didn't happen or it fell through. So I never talked about anything until it was done.
Word. So, I definitely, I talked to my man earlier because he actually seen a flyer and I don't know what he thought it was, but I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be talking to Leeds later on tonight. And I'm like, Leeds. He was like, Leeds Edutainment, absolutely, I know. Like he single-handedly, like was controlling the whole scene, and he's the one that brought, all the people. And I'm like, word, yo. And so part of what I really wanted to talk about, and I definitely don't want to step on toes, but obviously, like I do host and stuff too, so I'll take the back seat. But one of the pieces that I think is important in this story is just how we met, how I came to know who you were, and then just kind of the transition, because I knew you in the beginning stages of Leeds Edutainment before there was a banner. You know what I'm saying? It was just like a logo on a paper, and then just your business model changed, which then caused some gripes within people. You know what I'm saying? And
so for those that don't know, DL is now interviewing me. So this is actually, I should have just put myself on the flyer.
Word.
A picture of me saying, hey, come listen to Daniel Laurent interview me.
Word. You know, but
go ahead. No, it's totally fine. I don't mind having this conversation. This is actually a good one to have.
Because I don't know if you have, I'm sure you have in your own way, but I have never heard you actually have a conversation just about the techniques and what it took and why things, because I think, and by no means am I comparing you to, say, like Rusty from Funky Fresh, right? But just
for lack, comparison.
just for lack of better terms, like Rusty had his shop in Roxbury, right? Yeah. And he was definitely like, you know, when Jay-Z would come into town and, you know, in the stores and all that. But when you go in to buy a CD, his CDs would be like $24.99, right? But then you go to Tower and it's $9.99. So you're like, yo, what the fuck? You know what I'm saying? And so, but if you understand the business and you understand how bulk works, right? Rusty can't possibly buy what Tower Records buys. So therefore the prices are affected. You know what I'm saying? But I think if you explain that, it's a little different. You know what I'm saying? And so I feel like for you, I don't know if you've ever explained why and which, and it's your business, so you don't have to explain anything. However, I think that I understood it, and then I want to kind of get into what I chose to do from your model. You know what I'm saying? But does that make sense? I'm like,
well, I mean, it's quite the journey.
Yeah.
You know,
but from the chopping block, start from the chopping block.
Well, yeah, I think, like, you know, I look back and I'm trying to think when I met you. As I do remember you met you through Terrence, I think, who was producing you or engineering you. What was his full name?
Terrence Washington. And so that's my best friend. He T-Dub is what he's called.
T-Dub, yeah. He was a nice guy. Me and him worked together as street team guys for Metro Concepts. That's how we met.
Yeah.
And he was always pushing you. He was like, yo, my man DL, my man DL, my man DL. And we eventually met. I don't remember it at the chopping block. I remember the chopping block, and that was a dive bar and a half. Dive bar would be an understatement. But we met there, and we did our first show together, which was the Leak Brothers, which was Cage and Tame One's group at the time, which was not the best fit for you.
No.
You know, you're more of a conscious rapper, Boston, you know. The Leak Brothers, you know, were all drugs and formaldehyde and crazy shit. And it wasn't really the great fit, but, you know, you came through and you did your thing. And you're right, I didn't have a banner. I had my first logo, which Louis Bello designed, the singer, which nice guy, he did graphic design, but he wasn't really a full-time, you know, he wasn't like he was a singer who did design, basically. Wow. And the logo was cool, but, you know, people kind of said it looked like a crack pipe with a piece of crack falling into it because the L looked like a crack pipe, and then the E that was on top of it looked like the crack that was about to go into the pipe. So I had to get that fixed.
Yeah, that's not that's not the message you're selling.
Yeah, so that was probably like July 2004. I'm thinking that's when we met. You know, and started working from there. And, you know, from there, you know, from what my memory is, you know, you got pretty heavy into the Boston hip-hop community. We both kind of did. You know, there was the MIC Awards, and there was this movement that was kind of coming through with you and a bunch of other artists.
Shout out to Dre. Dre's in the room.
Nice.
Tech.mp, shout out to y'all.
And we were picking up kind of where, you know, Lyrical was doing this thing at the time. Who was on the MIC? It was Dame, right?
Dame, Lyrical, and Irv. And then you had Liv and a few other people. But those were the main three people that were moving and shaking. And Lyrical got a ton of criticism because he's a part of it. And also he is now being nominated. You know what I'm saying? However,
in one.
Yeah. But however, I think that, and people could definitely feel a way, but I think knowing the inner workings of, I knew the process of what they were doing and going into actual record stores back when they had record stores. But going here, shout out to Jeff 2 times also. I love you so much. So I have to shout you out.
Yeah, I was about to say, he was about to say he was here and I didn't shout him out either. So
he would let me have it. He would actually call and interrupt this interview and let me, But, they actually went into record shops and had ballot boxes, you know what I'm saying? And had people vote for, best album. And to Lyrical's credit, he actually was going around with his vinyl and with his CD and going into different places and promoting it and really like being hard about it. So it's almost like if somebody's running for office in city council and you keep driving by and you keep seeing Leedz Edutainment. It doesn't mean that I like you or that I even know what you run on, but it's just like, yo, like I keep seeing Leedz. So when Leedz comes on the thing, I'm gonna check Leedz. So that's kind of what really was, you know what I'm saying? So
yeah, and Lyrical at that time, I mean, when he was actually a promoter before me, even though he was like a rapper and battle rapper and MC, but he was actually, when I came on the scene, he was just he was promoting shows. Not even necessarily with him on it. He was throwing them. I mean, I saw him a show he did with Immortal Technique at the Western Front. He was another promoder.
Smart.
And then when I got into it, he kind of stepped away from it.
Yeah.
But I mean, for a while there, I mean, he was everywhere. Everywhere. You couldn't not see Lyrical.
You couldn't. So that's the thing. And so
anything you walk down the street, you're like Lyrical.
Exactly.
He's everywhere.
Exactly. So it's name recognition. And so that's to his credit. So that's why when people was always talking shit like, how the fuck they gonna have such and such? And it's like, yo, now if you want to have a conversation if he should have taken himself out of it, that's a different conversation. But for him to be in it and people are familiar with that, like, you know what I mean? Like, how does that work? So, anyway.
Conflict of interest. But,
yeah.
I ended up getting promoter of the year the first year they threw it. That was exciting. That was
at the Prudential, right?
Hancock.
At Hancock, yeah.
Yeah, and I won promoter of the year, and that was great. And then the second year they did it, they just threw us all in one category. They just gave all the promoters, hey, you guys all mean something. Here you go. Me and Marlene and a few others.
Oh, Restless, yeah.
Restless Entertainment.
Well,
and,
I think
Dame was just pissed because he was a promoter and wasn't getting enough credit for what he was doing.
Yeah,
so he was like, we're all the same boss. Well, I was like, all right, well, okay.
Well, I think also what was happening was, you had the Boston Music Awards that was happening, and people definitely was questioning how things were moving.
Oh, that's the most questionable thing ever. And there's good people there trying to run it these days, but that has just got like
yeah. Exactly.
I mean, I went at him myself like a couple of years ago, but that has always been a political thing.
Yeah, and so MIC's whole thing was to try to not be that, but also it's just one of them things where I understand now with maturity, and I'm sure you understand that you can't make everyone happy. There's no way around it. So you do your thing, you try to, show honor and whatever, and then you just move on, and that's that. Anyway, I digress to MIC and everything like that.
And the MIC committee, they really tried, but when the issue is like we were very undeveloped still. Even back then we were undeveloped. I mean, there was dudes ahead of us that were doing it national levels, but for the most part, we were pretty undeveloped scene.
Yeah.
And to throw an award show with an undeveloped scene is going to cause a frenzy of competition among others.
Yeah.
Where we're going to discredit each other. We're going to do whatever we got to do. And that's just the nature of this business, unfortunately. And any business, really, is that when you got a bunch of people fighting to the top, you're going to have competition.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that Boston has really struggled with, in my opinion, is we're too competitive with each other. We're way too competitive because
what it did. All right. But But would it also,
times calling you.
I know, that's what I was hoping it was. So what it ended up happening was it did create people to be like, oh shit, I want to get mixtape of the year next year. Like, I remember hearing people like, yo, I'm gonna win that shit next year. And I'm like, dope. So for that is a good thing. You know what I'm saying? Because, oh, shout out to Dane. Dane's in the room. It actually, it pushed people to be motivated for something bigger than themselves. So that was dope. You know what I'm saying? To your point, and I think it's changing now, and I'm so happy to see it, and I'm happy to feel it. You have different people in different pockets who are doing their thing, and some people have major attention. Then you have people that kind of have major attention. Then you have people that are consistent, and you have people who are up and coming. It's just dope. And this energy that exists today didn't exist back then. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And I'll tell you why also is back then, you know, we're talking 2004 to 2010, you know, you were either in the scene or you were out.
Yeah.
You know, you were either embraced by the scene or you didn't fit in or you couldn't get your shit off.
More.
You had to, you know, like that was the problem back then because, you know, it wasn't as niche in pockets like you just said. All these pockets didn't exist. It was either you're part of the Boston hip hop scene or you got to go to another market, and that meant move. Like if you were doing some like more conscious, like fucking more like, you know, organic shit, you know, you have to go to fucking Vermont.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's not going to work in the city.
Yeah.
You know, or if you're doing like Rhyme Sayers style or, you know, trying to sound like Atmosphere, you got to go to fucking Minnesota. You know, like. You couldn't stay in Boston. You know, you were either in this boom bap, New York, off, like whatever style. That's the other thing. Boston style is kind of hard to describe.
Yeah.
But like you were either in that, or you're out.
Or out. Yeah.
And it was tough. And it was tough to be a part of that. And I can imagine if you were out, that you're not going to feel too good about it. You know what I mean?
And then that's where some of the criticism I think came from you. Or towards you with you know, so I guess it's a matter of, you know, I don't know when things change with you, and shout out to Peter Parker because I know that he was there on a ground level. You know, extreme love for him, and like, you know, just watching like where he's been, you know, just progressing, you know what I'm saying? But there was a time where like it was just like almost a Leedz Edutainment presents open mic night, and everyone can come, and you know, if someone sends you an email, they can get on a flyer. At some point, something changed, and then, you know, maybe an email wasn't being returned, and they couldn't get on the fly. They couldn't get on a bill as easy. Or my favorite, I love AZ, still love AZ, will always love AZ, right? Maybe AZ is not so. Let's not use AZ. Let's say. I
think AZ is a good one to use.
Well, yes, that's a literal example.
Can we talk about the AZ show? We'll talk about the AZ show.
Yeah.
After. I'll let you finish your
point. So let's say Bia's doing her thing right now, right? You know, clearly, if you put Bia on the show, it's gonna have a good turnout. You know that as a business person, right? So you're gonna have a Bia show. So. For me or you know, MC Warren Street reaches out that, hey, I want to be on a Bia show, right?
MC Warren Street.
I just always come up with wild names. So MC Warren Street wants to be on a Bia show, right? And you're like, well, so something changed at a certain point where for me, my I wanted you to explain, if you don't mind, but I wanted you to explain what shifted. But for me, it was a business decision on what makes the most sense to reach your bottom line. I never just kind of dumbed it down to you have to pay to play to do a lead show. I took it as there's proven models and there's unproven models. And for the unproven models, how do you try to mitigate those risks, right? So for me,
go ahead.
So for me, I took it that way. Also, though, one of my critiques with you over the years, especially in the past before I really like funneled it and thought about it, was I personally felt like as a promoter, the job of the promoter is to put together the best possible product and then sell it, right? So, you know, you want to sell a cake, you want to have the best frosting, the best ingredients, the best flour, cook it for the right temperature, have it nice and moist. Pause. I don't really say moist when I'm on the phone with guys. But
moist skin lotion?
It's moist. So you want to have the best possible cake that you're selling, right? So if you don't have the best possible cake, then don't get mad at me because I didn't want to buy it. So part of my critique to you was like, damn, like he's putting together shows and it's not complimenting, you know, it's someone who I think is great. And then you kind of have people that's like, yeah, motherfucker, I'm rapping at the handicap. Yeah. And you know, I got the jammy back. Yeah. And I'm like, come on, bro. So, but I understood mitigating risks. So I never heard you explain this. And I wanted to, because it leads into another conversation I wanted to.
Oh boy, here we go. So, you know, I haven't had one of these conversations in a while. Danger Zone just shouted out Yak Balls.
Yak Balls.
I don't know if Yak Balls was on that Leak Brothers show. So, you know, he was Cage's right-hand man for a while.
Cage, yeah.
You know what Yak Balls is now, like, became like one of the biggest publicity guys, and it was a publicist.
Really?
I forget what agency it was, but he became a gigantic publicist.
Wow.
Working some of the biggest, you know, I think he run the Jewels and all these other stuff.
Yikes.
But yeah, shout out Yak Balls. You know what you're talking about is, you know, the progression of a promoter that's just throwing shows he wants to throw, and why I got into the business. Obviously wanted to make money, but really just wanted to throw the shows I wanted to see, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I started off really trying to curate them with who I thought was the best acts possible, right? So I did what you're talking about. I tried to use the best flour and the best ingredients and all that stuff. But unfortunately, a lot of those shows in the beginning lost a lot of money. And the one you were on lost money, Leak Brothers. Now, granted, I was an inexperienced talent buyer at the time as well. And let's say maybe, you know, there was other things involved. Just inexperience, right? So I did that for a while. And, you know, the stress, the financial stress and pressure, and any promoter will tell you, independent promoter, you know, of worrying about the show losing money and all that pressure on you destroys any joy that you might even have towards it, right? Because it's, I mean, just think about you're going into something knowing you're going to lose thousands of dollars. How are you going to feel, right? That's a fear, like, you know, especially for someone like me, you know, financial insecurity, that's a fear that no one really wants to feel, right?
No.
But it comes with the territory, though, right? So after a while and getting hit up by a million artists all the time, put me on. Now, back then, there's no streaming. There's no other thing. The music industry is crashing as far as the traditional way of selling CDs and tapes and all that other shit. Everyone's downloading everything for free. There's no money there. So shows, and, you know, social media hasn't really taken off yet. So shows was the number one way to really kind of get your shit out there, you know, being on stage. So the amount of people that were hitting me up was crazy, like unbelievable. To the point where it was, you know, I had a friend of mine be like, yo, you should charge all these guys. And I was like, I don't want to do that. So I tried to find a system that I thought would be fair. And the system that I thought was, okay, if you want to get on these shows that require these risks, I need you to sell tickets. And, you know, I felt like if you couldn't guarantee 30 people or whatever it was, 20 to 30 people to come to a show, then it's not going to work for me financially, because I need these opening acts to bring people. I'm relying on it a little bit, you know? As a talent buyer, you want every act to be on there bringing people.
Exactly.
And, you know, and I fell for people saying, yeah, I'll bring people, and then they barely promote the show, and then they did walk in and perform and leave, and nobody came for them. You know, after a while, you get bitter at that, right? After a while, you're like, oh man, screw that, you know. And I lost trust in that. So that's when I instigated the ticketing system. Now, I didn't make everybody sell tickets, but on certain shows, I had to have people sell tickets. And you're right. It became, over the years and of doing it, it became like, who the hell is this guy? Who's this new artist on the show? He's obviously just selling the tickets. And the people that couldn't sell the tickets missed out on some opportunities. I'm not going to lie. That did happen. But it was such a risky business, such a risky business. The promoting shows is so risky. Nobody wants to do it. And that's what I had to do. Now, somewhere along the line, you know, it became to me redundant. It was like, all right, I'm just putting on the same old act. I'm putting on acts. And I want to thank everybody that sold tickets or didn't sell them all, still came out of pocket. I want to thank everybody for that. They kept the shows going. Those people kept those shows going.
Right. Jake the Snake, Slane.
I mean, those
Black
guys.
Medine.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously had relationships with guys like that where it didn't sell tickets. But the opening acts, if you were new and you needed to prove yourself to me, you had to go through this system. And until, you know, and there was artists that sold tickets until they didn't have to sell tickets. I mean, it varied from person to person. But eventually I said, you know, once I started getting steady work at the Middle East and, you know, I was a talent buyer there and I had steady employment, I stopped doing that. And I just said, you know what, I'm going to go back to curating the shows the best I can with just the best acts. And I'm taking tickets off the table, because I didn't want to do that anymore. And it was a hot topic in the community, and it still is a hot topic in the community. And there's still promoters out there doing it, all types of levels. And it doesn't matter. What I realized is, you know, this has always be a hot topic. You're either on one side of it or you're not. And I don't want, you know what? And the only way it's going to go away is if I just don't do it.
Yeah.
And, you know, for the last few years, I really just didn't do it. And I just tried to just book to the best of my ability. I wish I could have curated everything based just on talent.
Yeah.
I wish I could have done that. I really wanted to do that. And I did that for the last 3 years, and I do that now. But that era, man, it was, you know, there was no digital marketing, there was no Facebook ads, Instagram ads. It was
streets.
You had to get on the street and sell the tickets.
Yeah.
And and in hindsight, looking back on it, the headliners were charging too much money. You know what I mean? Like, if we had just got them to do it for cheaper, we wouldn't have done any of this.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, but that wasn't the case. And, you know, nowadays, you know, I also didn't understand my role. As you talk about my role, it was at that time how important the shows were. Building the community, I didn't really see myself as a community person. I just saw myself as a promoter, and I didn't really understand my role, what that really meant at the time. You know, I was like, just let me do my thing, let me run my business. I'm just trying to survive. You know, and I was very confrontational. You know, I'd always argue with anybody. You know, and I made a lot of mistakes. You know, which I'm still trying to fix to this day.
You know what I appreciate actually about, you know, and this is like growth and maturity on all levels of, like, in hindsight you see things differently. You definitely, like, I can see you as clear as day right now standing at the shows, and you would stand there, and you're a very tall guy, right? You'll stand there and you'll kind of have your arms folded, and so somebody will be like, yo, Leedz, what's up, bro? And like, I'm like, damn, did I do something wrong? But that was you. But see, I also didn't know, and shout out to Alcide, DJ Alcide, and Sheik's in the room too. You know, I know that you talk about, you know, sobriety, right? I didn't know to what extent you were, like, involved in that. So now in hindsight, I'm like, oh, wow, okay, so you take this important factor in, that might kind of, for all I know, on some stripper shit, not comparing you to a stripper, but, you know, maybe before, that's a different Leedz Edutainment. But before each show, you might have had to feel like you had to get blasted in order to go to the show. I don't know, but.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely was high and drunk a lot of times at the shows for a while there. But that game face at the shows is, you got to remember, there's tons of stuff cooking, right? So I'm worried about the show running on the time. This is before I have a stage manager. This is when I'm stage managing, promoting, putting the money up, running the show, making sure everything's going on. I'm in between the club. I'm talking to the artists, the opening acts. There's all these things running at the same time. Plus, you got a security issue if it's an issue with like a crowd that's difficult or an entourage that's difficult. I mean, the stress level of running a show by yourself at that point has you like this.
Yeah. You can't be Mr. Friendly.
And then the build up to the show of getting everything ready and promoting it, it's exhausting. And to be honest, I look back on it and I go, how the hell did I do it so drunk and so high all the time? Because it was like, you know what I mean? I don't know how I pulled that off. I was just really, really talented. But like, you know, that was while I was in my mid-20s, I could recover easier. But you know, it was. But that's what it was back then, man. You know.
Well, I will say, like, you know, the first show at the Middle East, I'm not sure. That wasn't an AZ show that I did. That wasn't my first show.
No, you did Leak Brothers.
No, that was
your first one.
That was at the Middle East?
Yeah,
oh, I remember that flyer. Okay, I remember the flyer. Okay.
I still got the poster.
I remember that. Okay, so
I got the poster.
So the very first show, I remember because I was so excited, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna perform at the Middle East and Leedz Edutainment. Leedz. Okay. Well, do I call him Leedz? Do I call him Ned? Which one? And I was actually thinking about this in my head, right? So I remember like trying to get a flyer, and I'm like, damn, so you gotta have my name on a flyer, or I'm not gonna be on there. So what I did was, I went and I think I did something on a computer. I had a logo that I had created, and I ended up getting I went to Kinko's or one Copy Cop or something, and I was like, yo, I gotta get the attention. So I got like some yellow flyers, I got red flyers, and I put them all throughout the city. So I went to Emerson, I went to Berkeley, Cambridge, Harvard Square, passing them out, putting them in 7-Eleven, Store 24s. Right. And so
that's the hustle.
And it was actually, and I remember being on a bus. I remember being on a Mass Ave bus, passing them out to people.
Yep.
And some of those people actually came to the show. And so I was like, oh, shit. And so I remember I had this idea while I was talking to my aunt, and she, you know, we were bouncing ideas off each other. And I was like, yo, I'm going to sell my CDs for $1 because I'm doing it myself. I don't have no overhead or whatever. And she was like, yeah, that's some crackhead price shit. So I came up with the dope theme price. And so I had the CDs at the back. I had somebody at the back table with the CDs. And I remember writing on a piece of cardboard, you know, $1 CDs, dope theme price. And I brought like 75 CDs or something with me. I sold out of all of them. And I remember the moment I got off the stage, you know, like, the moment I got off the stage, I saw probably like 15, 20 people like exit stage left and walk out. And I've never been a person to promote to my family and friends, for better or for worse. And people criticize me about that. I just always wanted the real, I don't want the American Idol shit of, oh, baby, you did a good job. They just don't understand you. I don't want that bullshit. I want like the real words, the real feedback from people. So when I saw those people leave, I was like, oh, shit. Now, unless they all have family emergencies, right, which is not the case, you know, I'm like, wow, they left after they saw me. I was like, oh, shit. And I was like, okay, now I got to go back to the thing. So fast forward, we're doing shows. And then once that got instituted, and, you know, you're only as good as what you did last, right? So no one cares about, like, Masterpiece on the radio, 88.9. Hot 97 was playing it. Wild Boy was playing it during the day. They were taking my instrumental and putting Mace over it. And like, I mean, like mainstream shit, right? Nobody cares, like, if that shit's 6 months ago. So me and you I feel like have always been decent. It's never been like, oh, fuck you, blah, blah, blah. But I remember, I think I reached out and it was some show. I mean, say like you're throwing a show with Little Baby on it, right? If Little Baby's coming, that ticket's going to be so big, you're going to want every single person to make sure they bring 30, 40 people. And so I reached out to you about doing some show, and he was like, oh, you know, you got to do 30 tickets or 40, whatever it was. Part of me was an ego check of like, who the fuck's he talking to? Do he know? So, but when I put that to the side, I was like 30 to 40 tickets. So that means that I'm bringing him XYZ, this amount, carry to 1, carry to 2. And then I don't know if I'm actually being paid from, but I guess I'm getting a piece of the ticket sales from this. I was like, yo, I might as well just throw my own shows. And I'm a hustler, and not a hustler in the sense of being on the corner and selling dope, but I'm just a natural hustler. I used to sell candy. I used to sell Mason shoes. I used to sell Kirby vacuum cleaners. Like that's me, self-made entertainment, right? So for me, I'm like, I'm not going to necessarily go out of my way to be selling X amount of tickets for Leedz when I can just throw a show myself. Right. That in hindsight, because now I feel what you feel.
I always encourage that too, because people be like, yo, they used to be like, Leedz is a gatekeeper and Leedz is blocking everybody. And I used to always say, please throw your own show.
Word.
And then a lot of people be like, all right, I'll go do that. Then they go throw that. Should be a disaster.
Yeah.
They come back to me, they'd be like, hey, yo, I got so much respect for what you do, man. I really, really do, man. Like, you're great.
Yeah.
You know, because it's fucking hard.
And rappers, and I don't necessarily like to call, you remember Juice with Omar Epps' character? And like, when I used to watch that movie, I never got it. But, you know, when they're like, oh, yeah, he's local. Or Queen Latifah was like, oh, you from, you know, da-da-da? Oh, you local. And local is like derogatory for an artist, right? However, it describes you're not national, you're local. But I think homegrown or hometown sounds different because there's certainly a connotation that comes with being a local artist. So with that being said, when it comes to hometown artists, like and I'm including myself, even though I don't practice this, but we are the worst. You want us there at 8. We'll show up at fucking 10. We'll have 15 people with us, all asking to get in for free. Like, we'll perform and then leave with all of our people. Like, we are the worst. And so I dealt with that doing my own shows. And I'm like, yo, who the fuck do you think you are? And I remember having real conversations with some people. And I'm like, are you serious? It's, you know. I'm like, yo, are you serious, yo? And so it made me have a certain amount of respect. And I'm like, okay, this is not something I'm interested in doing. So Leedz is doing it on a high level. Let me, you know, there's enough cooked. Let me fall back, you know. And I think that the more you progress, and then Jake got involved, and it just became dope. Now the AZ show, I don't remember. What do you remember about the AZ show?
Well, it was the first AZ show we did. I don't know if you were on it or not. But there was the infamous, it was a big deal because everybody loved AZ.
Yeah.
That was a great show for Boston.
Yeah.
And, you know, we promoted it on bostonrap.com, like Lyrical was all behind it. Everybody was behind the show. This was like a real, this is like a class, this is a show that's going to do really well in the Boston hip hop community. You know, because we love that shit. And he showed up and did a 15-minute set.
Oh, shit. I was there. Yeah.
Because he, at the time, wasn't really doing shows, and if he was probably just doing club appearances. So he probably thought that that's what it was. So he got there, did 15 minutes, and left. And man, that was like the most controversial thing in the Boston hip hop scene there for a while.
Yeah.
To the point where like he was talking about, it made it all the way to New York. I remember like Cormega being like, "Yo, that shit with AZ is hilarious."
Yeah.
He'd call me and be like, "Yo, 15 minutes." Because I would have to tell these New York guys, I'm like, dude, this is the Middle East. This isn't a club appearance. They want
sweat.
This is the Middle East. You got to do half hour, 45 to an hour.
We want to see you sweat. Shit. There's no Dipset shit. We want to see you locked. We want to see you locked.
And this is before people really start rhyming over their vocals like crazy. But this is before that. This is just like you're either going to do a couple songs or you're going to do a set.
Yeah.
And that's what it was, man. And AZ, he redeemed himself because we booked him again, and he came back and he gave us what everybody wanted.
And he apologized.
That first one, man. He was, and shout out Dan Green. Dan Green was the agent on that. And he got in the middle of all of it. He got in the middle of all of it. I mean, I wasn't the only one yelling at him. Like everyone was yelling at him.
Yeah, that shit was. Yeah, I remember that. I remember that completely. Yeah. So I think that there's definitely been a progression of things. You know, the Middle East, man, with the performances, there's like legendary shit that has happened. I mean, you know, Royce the 5'9", I talked to him about this, and he's talked about it before too, but like, you know, that show, he sat there and drank a whole bottle of Patron.
Just the one like, got too drunk to perform?
Yeah, and he started mumbling over his words, and like, I didn't cry, but I was so heartbroken, yo. I can't even describe. I love Royce. Like, anyone that knows me knows I love Royce. So to see him,
that's the show. I think that's the show you got mad at me over because you wanted to open up. Is that a Slaughterhouse?
Yeah, yes. Slaughterhouse.
He's just making me sell the tickets on a Slaughterhouse.
Yeah, show. And Slaughterhouse is my favorite. It's my favorite group ever. Until you and I will say this: I don't care if, you know. I mean, there's rules, obviously.
I think you ended up doing it. I think you ended up doing the show, didn't you?
No, but what happened was it was after September 6th. I think my birthday was September 5th, and you end up having me go backstage, and I met Slaughterhouse, and I took a picture with him and talked to him or whatever, and that meant so much because that literally was on my birthday, and I love Slaughterhouse, you know what I'm saying? And so I'm not too cool to be a fan of someone, and I feel like that's the other thing that happens with artists, man, where it's like, just because you put words together and shit, now you are too big to be a fan of somebody. Like, when did that shit start happening? You don't have to be a fangirl and be fainting and shit. But like, yo, I love Slaughterhouse. They do what I can't do. And I'm okay with that. And I appreciate it. You know what I'm saying? Like the show that you did with Scarface and DMX showed up. That was legendary shit. And DMX and Swiss Beats literally drove. That wasn't planned. I don't think you knew that was happening.
Absolutely not.
So, you know, but DMX is a true fan, or he was a true fan of Scarface. And so for me, I'm like, yo, when did it become too cool to say, yo, I love what you did. I love what you did for me. I love what that record did for me. So, you know, so I will always have a massive amount of appreciation for you for that particular night, because that just meant the world to me. You know what I'm saying? And so I didn't open for them, but like, you know, I talked to him and shit. And I think Royce had his arm in a casket. I think he had gotten into a fight, which is true hip hop. You know what I'm saying? But you know, that was dope. But you know, I think everything, bringing it to just over the years and going through the process and doing shows with you, it really was a boot camp for me. Because I remember me and Slane being backstage, and Slane being fucking nuts out of his mind and like banging his head against the wall, literally. Like, I'm getting ready. I'm like, yo, what the fuck are you doing?
He does this thing with his mouth too. He stretches it out.
He said MC Shan taught him that. So he said MC Shan taught him to stretch your mouth, and then you can articulate your words. So, you know, I just remember that time, and I remember all that, and I remember being backstage and on some 8 Mile shit where like, yo, y'all ready for the next act? You ready for DL? And you hear people screaming, and then you walk on the stage and you see all the lights. Like those, unfortunately, some people don't get a chance to have that. You know what I'm saying? No. And there's a certain kind of boot camp, if you care about the craft, comes with that. And so that carried on with me today, where, you know, even me and Dre talk all the time, where there's just a difference in professionalism. So showing up to something and being prepared, if the mic fucks up, what do you do? What do you do to pivot? If the sound messes up, what do you do to pivot? You don't ever, it's not okay to ever say, yo, sound man, what the fuck? Yo, suck my dick, yo. You don't do that. That's not necessary.
Definitely not going to sound good if you do that.
No, don't do that. You know what I'm saying? So like, there's a certain way in which you carry yourself. There's a certain way, if there's a sound check at 7, show up for the sound check, yo. Because you know what? If you don't, then you pay. And don't be mad at anybody else, because you will pay. There's a reason for that shit. And so going through, I don't want to say Leedz boot camp, but going through that helped me for what like I'm doing now today. You know what I'm saying? So I'm always appreciative.
What are you doing now today?
So today, it's a mixed bag. I think, you know, to put everything, so it's not so long-winded. I think after Nipsey Hussle was murdered, I still remember that day. I remember what I was doing. I remember it clearly. I was heartbroken. And it wasn't that I was such a Nipsey fan for his music per se. I thought his music was dope, but I would hear him talk and hear what he was doing and hear what his visions were. It was just such a tragedy for that to have been taken that way, especially in a place that he built for other people to have an opportunity that they probably wouldn't have had. So,
right.
You know, I took that heartbreak and pain and said, I have to do something. And at that time, my father-in-law, who recently passed, he called me about a meeting at the mosque for 10,000 Fearless Peacemakers. And it was because I believe she was 80-something years old in Mattapan. Eleanor Maloney got murdered on her front steps. And it was, I think, some internal family shit or whatever. It wasn't intended to happen, but regardless, that's an awful thing to happen. All the shit she survived, and for her to be murdered by gunshots, you know what I'm saying? So I went to the meeting at the mosque. Basically, like, that re-engaged me in community efforts, and I joined the 10,000 Peacemakers. We were doing Our Power every Thursday from 7 to 8 p.m., going to different hotspot neighborhoods. And then still all the while I was writing, creating, whatever. Joined Brothers Building, which, we helped pass a bill in the State House, the Commission of Black Men and Boys, which basically it's money that's allocated that's going to actually help try to put some things in place as support. And we changed some of the language with some of that. We advocated for it. We ended up getting it passed. That was a great thing. I've done like film stuff, TV stuff. I did a lottery commercial, when my voice was in it and the guy was like screaming and acting or whatever. My song Outside that I did with Jeff Palmer, that won, no exaggeration, it won about like 40 awards for best video. Not even necessarily best hip hop video, but best video. And that got me, and that was like my vision. A lot of it was my vision. A lot of it was me being intentional about imagery of what I want representing my song. I was never an artist where I wanted to have, chicks shaking their ass and like rim spinning. That's just not my bag. And me and Drew Garrity, rest in peace, argued about that with the Mirror video, because he wanted me to have a performance video, because Flane had a performance video with Rich Man, Poor Man. And I think Mike Styles was doing Bringing It Back. And he wanted me to have a performance. And I said, I don't want a performance video. I wanted to tell a story. And we argued and argued and argued. And I'm like, bro, take it or leave it. And he trusted my vision. And to this day, I still feel like that video is like solid, Yep. So anyway, so all that stuff, me and my partner Rockland, we our friendship rekindled because we did a commercial years ago.
Rockland used to rap, right?
Well, he used to, and he used to be with.
I remember that name.
He used to be with Metaphoric, Daz.
Yeah, okay. Shout out Metaphoric.
And so I think he kind of stepped aside for a while, and life stuff was happening, but. We did a commercial years ago that played for like a year and a half on all the major like cable stations or whatever. And, we met again years later. His wife and my wife became friends. We just started spending more time with each other. And, we said we were going to do a project. And so the project is called Black Dollar. And it's really, it's not like Public Enemy or Dead Prez. It's not a matter of like preaching to people, but it's really about being intentional about the messaging of like group economics. And so what tends to happen is, whether it's, Irish community, Asian community, Italian community, even the Spanish community, like they all practice group economics in a way that benefits everyone. Mm-hmm. And for blacks or for, American blacks, I guess, what I'm saying? Like, pause that for 1 second. I personally feel like I don't have any culture. My culture was hip hop. So that's why with the changes, it broke my heart so much. The essence and the way I wear my hat, the way I wear my pants, the way I wear my sneakers, the way I talk, that's hip hop. You know what I'm saying? And that's me. That identifies me. So, however, with that, there's no group economics where, you know, we're all putting our money together to buy a building. You know what I'm saying? We're all putting our money together to have a Leedz Edutainment and bring artists here, and we're gonna do whatever, and then we're gonna, you know, the person that's gonna do the image is our next door neighbor. We're gonna give the money to him. And the person that's gonna do the sound is the person I went to school with. We're gonna hire him. Like, we are always constantly going out. We take our money from Roxbury and we go to Newbury Street or go to Copley. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So Black Dollar is about that, and it's about the ideal of putting the message, you know, in the music through the music vehicle and putting the medicine in the candy. And so there's 8 songs that we recorded. You know, we have a video to shot that I feel like is amazing and is so inspiring. It's been done, but I don't want to put it out yet. I'm trying to like present it properly. I don't want to ever just be like, hey guys, watch my video on YouTube and have 2 people share it and shit. Like, it's a bigger.
Well, let me know, because I can help you with that.
Thank you, man. Thank you. And you know, it's like, I've never felt this way about a particular project in my whole life. And I know every artist thinks their shit's dope and this is going to be the one and blah, 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 and all that bullshit. All that aside, I feel that this is going to be different. You know what I'm saying? So it's just a matter of just presenting in a certain way and like being intentional. And also the flip side, and I want to say this because this is important. Black Dollar is for group economics and for us to support Black businesses. However, it's also important for those Black businesses to show up and be professional and be of service. So it's not okay if I am taking my hard-earned money and coming to your store and buying food that is not thoroughly cooked or cold, or coming to buy a shirt that has a hole in it. And then when I say, hey, bro, this has a hole in it. Oh, man, you know, didn't have a hole in when you bought it. I can't help you. Like, that's not service. You know what I'm saying? So it's a matter of really just like promoting excellence and promoting growth and us having grace with each other. And also, if we go to a restaurant and it's a 25-minute wait, don't go on Yelp and say, oh, fuck that place and blah, blah, blah. Because when you go to an Asian restaurant, when you go to Cafe Pacific and you wait, I don't see any Yelps. So anyone in my particular circle.
That's because those crab rangoons, look, you don't want to lose those Cafe Pacific crab rangoons, man. For those that don't know, that's the best in the city. I can't eat them anymore.
Oh,
but
Jesus.
DL knows what I'm talking about.
The crab rangoons. But, you know, I think
specifically Cafe Pacific.
Cafe Pacific. But, you know, it's just one of those things where, like, everyone else does it, but I think we don't for our own reasons. You know, the react certainly my generation, certainly generation before me, were like brought up to believe that white ice is colder. Like, so literally you're a plumber, Leedz, and there's another plumber who's a Black person, and they'll literally just be like, I'm gonna go Leedz. And you may be the most unqualified fucking, but just because they're gonna bypass. And all I'm saying is, don't bypass Leedz, but don't bypass him either. Like, do your due diligence and figure it out. You know what I'm saying? And so it's not a matter of being on no, you know, white man is the devil, shameless plug. Shout out to Slane. It's not a matter of that. You know what I'm saying? And I know, I mean, he's talking about something different. But people for years was like, the fuck is that supposed to mean? And it's like, bro, you got to listen.
Well, Slane was a controversial character. If you listen to the music,
yeah,
it was controversial. So we just played on that. He didn't want to go with that title, and me and Parker were like, we got to go with that title. We wanted to play off that stigma.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because he was an animal at that time.
Yeah,
You know what
yeah.
I mean? He was a devil. The whole shit. He was playing with fire. He was a devil. And so we didn't look at it as like, oh, everyone's racist shit. We were
Yeah.
just like, we're gonna be a devilish. It was more about we're doing the devil's work here. We're playing with fire, living this life.
Yeah.
And it was all real.
Yeah.
So that was really what it was.
And
it was kind of and it was controversial, and we wanted the controversy too.
And it worked. You know what I'm saying? And the one thing,
it also worked. It also worked because how good he was.
He's dope, and he's a student. He's a real student of hip hop, and he loves the craft, and he loves the culture, and he's not just in it for a quick bag or to try to hustle or to fucking get some chicks. Like, he loves that shit, and you can see it. So, you know, one thing that Slane said to me, and it might have been a reference to you or Drew, I don't remember, because I was talking, I was upset.
Slane stuck up for me a lot back then.
Well, what he
still
said,
probably does.
No, he was right, because what he said was
Slane always understood my business and why I did what I did as a businessman.
Yeah.
He always understood that. So he would have to defend me to you and to other people. He knew me better than all of you.
Yeah.
So he knew, like, you know,
if you saw the way
I was living for those years, you'd be like, this guy's not just sitting here with a bag of money. You know
no.
what I mean? Like,
well, you lived in you were in Hyde Park, right?
Yeah, I was in Hyde Park.
In that little
square.
Yeah.
Above a pizza shop, living with 2 or 3 other people.
And you and Parker, right?
Well, originally it was me and Parker, but Parker moved to Minnesota, you know, in like 2006 or 7. So, you know, after that, you know, I was still in Hyde Park. You know, I was just, you know, I had like a $500 a month place.
Word.
Well, you know, it wasn't lavish living.
No. Well,
it wasn't a brownstone on Newbury Street.
One thing that Slane said was, you know, DL, you have to stop taking business decisions so personally, right? And he was 100% right.
We all.
And you know, it's easier said than done, and I still struggle with that now. But what I realize is, as an artist, when you're putting your heart and soul into something, and all you want is for people to be a man of their word or a woman of their word, right? So if you say you're gonna call me or you're gonna send me something by the end of the night, I'm holding you to that. And so so for me, you know, Leedz, as long as I've known you, like, my number has always been the same. You probably can count on one hand how many artists have the same phone number, right? Like exactly. Most, you know what I'm saying? So for me, it was always a matter of I never want to miss an opportunity. I never want to have someone feel like DL didn't come through. DL didn't do what he said he was going to do. That shit means a lot to me. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I think that it was a beautiful time. It was dope.
I think, you know, it's tough because you do business a good way. You're a good person. You do things right. And part of you, when you do that, holds people to that standard.
Yeah.
That you should be doing that too. Like, I do good business. I expect you to do good business. But the reality is, especially in hip hop, is that that's not the case. And sometimes it's not people's fault. They were never trained that way. They were never taught. They never looked for good influences or had good influences to show them, hey, don't do this and don't do that. Or, you know, they're just plain jerks. But a lot of times they're misinformed on what the reality is, what good business actually is, not how cool I look or the allure of the music industry. No, what is real good business?
Right.
And those skills and how to build relationships and keep those relationships, play the long game, not the short game.
Right.
So many people are not taught that.
Yeah.
You know, and I hope with your new movement, you educate people into that, you know, and it's hard to divorce your expectations from it. It is. To this day, I still struggle with that. You know what I mean? And that's like, I just want people. Sometimes I just want people to do the best, but they can't. And what I realize is I can't expect that out of some people. You know what I mean? I can only hope to get what I want you know, I hope that we come to some business agreement, and if it doesn't work out, we just don't do business and I move on. You know?
Exactly. Moving on is the key.
And you filter it out.
Word.
You filter out who's who.
Word. So, you know, definitely, man, it's been a journey, and for me, because it's definitely been, I'm very mindful of my words and what people hold me to. And shout out to State Representative Brandy Fluker Oakley. She was in the room a little while ago. You know, I helped with some of her campaign and like endorsed her or whatever, and she ended up winning, which was dope. I want to stand for what's right. So it doesn't matter like what side of the aisle you're on, your political affiliation, your race, whatever. Like I've heard the terms of like culture vulture and Leedz in the same in the same sentence, right? And what
I know, I've seen it actually on a video lately with Smoke Bolger.
Yeah. So, you know, and so, but see, that's why I wanted to have this conversation.
That's a misunderstanding. That guy, and I've tried to talk to Smoke a couple times, where another promoter has thrown me under the bus. And,
yeah. Well,
it is what it is.
Well, the thing is, it's a matter of like what I will say about that, and what I, you know, not in particular with him, but I think that just like, you know, saying someone's racist or saying someone's sexist or saying someone's homophobic, like things just get thrown around so loosey-goosey now where like it changes the actual true things. I never looked at you as a culture vulture. I looked at you as a business person. And to your own words, which I appreciate, you weren't looking at your role in the culture like that back then. And if you had, then maybe your moves would have been a little more different, right? But that's all in hindsight. You were looking at it from a business standpoint. You were looking at how to survive, how to make the best possible business. But what happens is we're all from Boston. There's no real scene here. There's no infrastructure. And we all want to help each other. But if we're all not fucking having meetings trying to figure that out, we can't expect everyone to be on that same page. You know, so
well, you know, helping each other is very important. Helping each other without the expectation of getting anything in return.
Word.
That's really where it comes in, because I see a lot of people try to help each other out, but they expect something back, and when they don't get what they want back, then they get bitter and they get
fuck you,
pissed, and it's screw you. No, it's not. That's not why you should help somebody.
Yeah.
Help somebody in the community because you want to help them. You believe in their music. You believe in their personality. You believe in them as a person.
Yeah.
Don't do it and expect anything in return. You do that, I guarantee you'll be a lot happier.
Or the asterisk to what you just said is just be upfront in the beginning. Hey, I'm going to help you with this, but in a year from now, I'm opening a brick and mortar, and I'm going to need you to come and DJ for me. And be open about it, and I have no problems with it. But it's that shit about the, oh, yeah. And now you're calling me because you need to borrow money for rent, and I can't give it because I have a family. It's a problem. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, nevertheless, I love the conversation. I debated, when I reached out to you, I debated about having me and Rock on the phone to have a Black Dollar conversation. But what I said was it would be a different conversation because me and you have history. And so it's different things that we're going to talk about that Rock is not privy to. So, you know, I appreciate the platform, and I definitely, once I get some different pieces, I'm going to reach out.
And where I'm at now is really all about trying to help everybody in the community, you know, to the best of my ability, you know, with what I can. I do believe in the Boston community. I believe in helping your own community.
Smart.
You know, so many times I want to see Boston hip hop do well, but I'm not like unrealistic where I'm like, I'm going to take Boston to the next level. Like, you know, people get in here, I want to put Boston on the map. You know, it's already on the map. It's been on the map for a while. You know what I mean? But at the same time, like, I would love to see more jobs in the music business open up in Boston, you know, more artists be able to make their living and do that. I mean, to me, I think that's very important, and that builds with each other. The more I can help with that, the better.
Word. And so, you know, I appreciate that. And I think that, you know, there's some things that I definitely have ideas about. So I'll reach out at a later time and we'll go from there.
Yeah.
But, you know, I appreciate your contribution.
And yours too, man.
You know,
you're a good level-headed dude in the community. You know what I mean? Like, people could learn a lot from you. Man, you've had the same job for a while. There's a lot to be said about that. There's a lot to be said about that. How many people have had the same job for a while?
No.
You know what I mean? Like,
no.
You're a steady Eddie, man. Like,
yeah.
You're a level-headed dude. You're someone people can talk to.
Oh,
get real
shit.
And truthful.
Hold on. So, in closing, I have to, seeing you just said steady Eddie.
Wow, I just complimented you and you cut
No.
me off.
No, thank you. But what I will say, shout out to Joe Politics.
You sure you're a rapper?
Nah, yeah, exactly. So shout out to Politics. He's in the room. Polymore Soundstage, I call it. Amandi Music. The Lies We Tell just got released. It's an unbelievable album, like unbelievable. Peter Parker had a conversation with me one night at some show, and we were literally on the side of the stage. And this is the last story I want to share, which is interesting. And he said, in his own, you know, way, you know, you're a good fucking dude, DL. Like, dude, you fucking have what it takes to fucking sleep on a fucking floor in your own fucking vomit. You know what I'm saying? To go 3 weeks without seeing your wife and kids, blah, blah, blah. Or you just gonna make records on the side for your fucking neighborhood. You gotta figure it out, bro. I think that you're just a really good dude. You're not necessarily, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, yo, he's right, but I don't like how he's talking to me. And there's other people around. Should I be mad? Should I start a fight? Should I punch him? Should I listen? But he was right. And what he's right in saying is, it takes a certain level of dedication and being steadfast and and being able to separate yourself from your loved ones to make this happen, right? And I think what was important to me is raising a family, having my kids have examples, certain morals and principles that I feel is important, redefining my relationship and strengthening my relationship with my wife, buying a house in Boston. All those things were important to me instead of going to LA on a one-way ticket and making it happen. Because I do believe that I could have made it happen, but that comes at a sacrifice. You know what I'm saying? And so I appreciate what Parker said because it's true. And it made me step back a little bit and just be like, okay, let me know my place. You know what I'm saying? So you saying that made me think of that. He screamed it. Are you ready to sleep in your own fucking vomit? And I'm like, not really.
No, I'm not actually. I'm not willing to sleep in my own vomit.
But, in my king size bed.
Maybe sleep on the floor.
Exactly.
Someone else's couch.
Exactly.
No, but you know, he's very, and he's had many of those conversations with me in my career too.
Yeah.
You know, he's very passionate, very direct, and when he knows what the path is, he's going to let you know whether you want to hear it or not.
No, but I love it.
Shout out to him.
I love it.
I will say, man, you know, I think you made the right choice.
Mark.
Balance in your life, the balance in your life and the things you had outside of music, more important, you know, than just having a rap career. You know what I mean? I've seen what just rap career looks like, and it's not what these other things you have in your life. You know? And I always tell people, if you can balance your life out that way, do it that way. It's a better life.
Yeah.
You know, maybe you're not a full-time artist, but that's okay.
Yeah. More.
You know, have a home, have a family. These are great things.
Yeah. And they'll pour back into you. So yeah.
Good talk. I gotta wrap this up.
Thank you, bro. But, man, I appreciate it, man. This was dope. And definitely I'll be in touch once I get some other things in place.
I'm sure you will. So I want to thank everybody for tuning into the Leedz Edutainment podcast with Daniel Laurent, a.k.a. DL. And we'll talk soon.
Yeah.
Peace.
Oh, that's that's itchy.
Fresh out of boat, out of the caravan to the booth. Don't gotta glow, I been in the moat. Gotta secure the fort before I move. I done seen, done heard, done did it. Be stitched all in my fitted. Middle finger going up my critics. You snuck through the back door and I'm in it. Yeah, having them sitting, I know about me. Standing my moolah or got me. If you really wanna know about me, ask the ones that got love by me. Not one studying under my desk, lurking under my fresh, hating my best. Why I'm acing my tests? Baby, I'm blessed. I don't drink the Kool-Aid, nah. Stayed up on my own wave, yeah. Still got trauma playing. Body in the street like Udi and Kusei, yeah. Hope you get the shit, but I'm trying to build something here. Ain't no never nothing strong, I'm here, yeah. In the face of diversity, I be the one showing up, turning up every year. I'm on every year, yeah. You ain't never walk a mile in my shoe. You ain't never rock a crowd like I do. Pick my soul, don't it shine when I move. Pick my soul, don't it shine when I move. You done came up, took a few losses, staring in the mirror and your soul still shining. You done fell hate, you done fell love, and all of the above, and you know you're still grinding. I'm at it talk facts, my skin is still black. Might roll another switch with a chicken fall back. My soul intact, my soul intact, my soul intact, my soul intact, got my soul intact.
My soul is intact, surface scratch, but I'm still pristine. Condition for adult supervision, my thoughts create the scene. I brought the clean when dirty pervaded, no kidding B. I focus on my line boundaries, part in my symmetry. Clear with the message and in black, excellent with the imagery. King's English, but rep the barriers, African wizardry. This the epitome, mixing Malcolm and Garvey chemistry. With a touch of earn me as victory, lapping round enemies. Vision board hanging the castle from egg-colored ceilings B. Tariq trod a mind state, thoughts of black intentionally. Walking my size 10 purpose and no wrong identities. Get in the way of our progress, airing out your vicinities.
You ain't never walk a mile in my shoe. You ain't never rock a crowd like I do. Pick my soul, don't it shine when I move. Pick my soul, don't it shine when I move. You done came up, took a few losses, staring in the mirror and your soul still shining. You done fell hate, you done fell love, and all of the above, and you know you're still grinding. I'm at it talk facts, my skin is still black. Might roll another switch with a chicken fall back. My soul intact, my soul intact, my soul intact, my soul intact, got my soul intact.
My vision is so clear, my energy so high, plus my attitude's no fear. I was reaching them levels, they said I would never go there. Now they call me your boss, damn right I move like a pro here. Got me feeling like, oh yeah, you see how that man vicious, and look how we ambitious. The way that he handle business and grant wishes for the future of his children, this is how it look. Show me respect, you can call me sir like Howard Cook. Don't disrespect, I am a king and I am not a crook. Try to act fool, I turn up dude like I'm from the brook. When you get ignorant, we get intelligent. We strip away your false embellishments, we black and excellent. Tell him this, we be the lyrical specialists. Tell him this, we out to hit our goals and never miss. Tell him this, to all my leaders and my activists, moving forward through the struggle, putting up that black